It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. It's your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's a Monday morning and it's so good to be in your company. Hope you're having a wonderful start to the week. We are about to engage in some relationship chat as we do at this time on a Monday morning, so hope that you are ready for it. Dr. Eve has walked into the building. She's ready. The two of them, Tubbsy and Leanne, are looking right and ready. Let's double click, in fact, like on this one.
Double tap like on this one. It's an interesting conversation.
Yes.
We have been shining a light on various women's issues and topics throughout the month of August. And one issue that will probably affect most women in vastly different ways is the issue of menopause. Now, to round off Women's Month, we're going to be shining a light on the various changes that happen to a woman during this time of her life.
So today we're asking the question, how does menopause affect self-esteem and relationships? And of course, the one and only Dr. Eve is in the building to help us discuss this hot topic. And we would love to hear your questions, your comments as well. So you can head over to our Facebook page, drop a comment on the post, and we will engage with you live. Dr. Eve, good morning.
So good to have you. Dr. Eve, I mean, if there's one person to speak to about this sort of issue, it's definitely you, because you've run many, many workshops for women around these issues. But in your experience, do you find that women generally have a good understanding of what goes on as far as the changes are concerned in their lives or their bodies during this time?
No, Tabby, no. Women just are kept ignorant around menopause. It's such a stigmatizing word or process for women that they just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And the fact is that because we're all living so much longer, every woman is going to go through menopause. So there are two kinds of menopause. The one is a very natural, organic one that happens to women around age 50, 51, anything between actually 45 to 55. And then there's something called surgical menopause. And that would be for women who have had ovaries or a womb removed due to cancer.
Yeah.
So that could be even 25 years old, and suddenly all your estrogen is just gone. And because of that, you go into this transitional phase of menopause. And it feels like I'm getting old for women who go through just regular menopause. And who wants to age? So interesting, I put up a poll and I asked what would be the most impactful experience of menopause. And the majority of women said that actually it impacts on my intimate sexual life mostly. It also impacts on my self-esteem, how I feel about myself. I also have painful sex. And many women said it actually hasn't made any difference. So bottom line is each woman goes through menopause in a very different way. We can't escape it. It is just a natural process. When you get to this age, your estrogen disappears, and so your entire body changes. And women just are not used to it.
Aren't understanding it as well as they should.
And don't want to talk about it.
What are some of the physiological and psychological processes that women go through during menopause?
So because of the loss of estrogen, you're going to have enormous physical changes that are going to happen to you. So your hair changes. You suddenly feel like your hair's gone much thinner. Your skin goes much thinner. You obviously stop menstruating. That's your sign of going through menopause. And then you go through your menopausal symptoms where you become grumpy, and you then also find that you have lower interest in being sexual. You get the hot flashes, which is the usual sign that women know, oh, okay, so this is it. It's starting to happen for me. You get sweats. You also get depressed. A lot of women get depressed and have elevated signs of anxiety, aching joints. And oftentimes it can be misdiagnosed as depression. If you don't actually talk to a healthcare provider and say, actually my sexual interest is gone, or suddenly I'm having sexual pain and discomfort, because that's a big sign that your estrogen is really gone. And people become quite emotional, quite moody around that time as well. The good news is those symptoms do dissipate with time. The other good news, of course, is that there is an alternative way of managing it.
There is good news.
There is good
There is good news.
There is good news to it, is that there is an option of having hormone replacement. It's very controversial because there was, back in the day, there was a study that was done that showed that there's a huge increase in breast cancer. So 2001, people just stopped prescribing hormones for women. Since that time, the research has been relooked and found actually there were big gaps in the research, and it's quite safe for people who are good candidates to get onto hormone therapy. So there are many different ways of managing your replacement of the hormones that you've lost so that you can feel energetic and sprightly and sexual and happy and look great again.
There are ways around it. I mean, this conversation, I mean, there's so much to it. And in fact, what we'd like to get into as well is just understanding if these symptoms present themselves continuously or if they're intermittent. But we'll chat about that in a bit with Dr. Eve here on your Feel Good Breakfast show.
Exactly. We're asking the question, how does menopause affect your self-esteem and your relationships? We would love to hear your questions and comments for our relationship expert, Dr. Eve. So head on over to that Facebook page, drop a comment on the post, and we will engage with you.
It's my Feel Good Breakfast Show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's Expresso right here on SABC3. It's a Monday, and we always talk relationships on a Monday. Today, we're back with relationship expert Dr. Eve in the hot seat to help us discuss the changes that can happen in a woman's life during menopause. And we would love to hear your questions, your comments, your thoughts. So head on over to our Facebook page, drop a comment on this post, and we will engage with you.
That's right. So, Dr. Eve, earlier on, I was trying to get to understanding if these symptoms that we spoke about already, if they present themselves continuously or if they sort of happen in breaks and you might experience it for 5 months and not again until in 2 years' time, or how does it work?
So some women experience it suddenly with the flash, and those flashes can last for a number of years. Or else some women go through without a symptom at all. But it's not that you'll have a symptom and then you're going to have a break and then they're going to come back to you again. Usually over a period of years, those symptoms just disappear. Now, if you're going to take hormone replacement, and again I say only if you're a good candidate, and only your gynecologist can decide if you're a good candidate, then those symptoms do disappear, because that's the purpose of taking hormone replacement, is to really get rid of the symptoms. So they can be quite protective if you are on hormone replacement, but I'm really stressing over and over again that women must go to a gynecologist and not self-medicate themselves with things just over the counter. Because one of the most troublesome parts of menopause, because the estrogen just dries your whole body out, is the painful sex. And this is something which women feel a little shy to talk about, but can cause enormous distress, because what happens is that they stop being sexual. And that impacts on their relationship with their partner, who may not understand what's going on. Well, else 33% of women actually endure the pain and don't say anything to their partner. 33% of women, and that's really tragic, because you don't have to. So just to let women know that even if you don't want to get onto hormone therapy, there are other things that you can do to ensure that you do not have to have painful or discomforting sex. There are moisturizers on the market, vaginal moisturizers on the market, which are really very helpful, non-hormonal. So talk to a gynecologist or a sex therapist who works in sexual medicine to see what can I do to actually make sure that I have least discomfort during sexual intercourse.
I know you touched on it, and before I ask you about the coping mechanisms, I want to speak about how does a woman actually think about herself during that time? How does it affect her self-image?
It's such a big problem, because what happens to women is, as they lose estrogen, the body kind of searches for estrogen. So what the body does is it produces fat cells, because estrogen is produced in fat cells. So where does it produce fat cells? The arms of women, the thighs, the butt, and mostly the stomach areas. And I think many of our viewers can relate to that. You kind of get this tire of fat that just sits there. And no matter how much exercise or how much food, well-caring food that they're going to eat, that tummy just sits there. That's because the fat cells are there to try and find estrogen. So suddenly a woman will say, you know what, my body shape has changed. I've gained all this weight and I feel terrible about myself. So they kind of sit like this, so they wear clothes that are really loose. And it's really very, very painful to go through a process where you find, I can't do anything about it. So the thing that I say to women is, because all of us are going to have it, you can't escape this menopause situation, is make sure that you have a really good lifestyle from early on. Because the healthier you are, the more you get into routine of just doing regular exercise and eating in a healthy way, the less chance you have of really morphing your body into a shape and size that you just don't feel comfortable with.
But those, of course, are lifestyle changes that women can look to. It's such a big change in a woman's life that I'm imagining that you would need so much more support as well around managing this and going through this. So who do you go to hold your hand during this process, and also to make sure that you understand what you are going through? Are there support networks out there?
Yeah. I mean, online there's a lot of communities for women who want to talk with each other about menopause. Women talk to each other, and partners need to be quite tolerant as well, because it can be very trying and testing for a partner when your female partner is going through menopause and she's irritable. I mean, children also get affected by this. Suddenly mom is like really irritable and very anxious or somewhat depressed and just complaining and just absolutely almost like personality change that happens because of the incredible changes that you feel around yourself. So you feel like out of control with yourself and your emotions. So partners have to be really tolerant around this as well, because it's not easy living with a menopausal woman. It does pass. It becomes who you are, and you settle down, and your body gets used to not being with the hormones. But I really would encourage women to maintain a healthy eating plan and a healthy lifestyle, and to maintain a sense of good body sense by still dressing the way that you want to, not having to slip into the stage of, oh, I'm old, you know, like this is it, I'm done, I'm done, I'm not going to be sexual anymore. That's just not what it is.
Yeah. I love that, because it is an inevitable part of a woman's journey. But I love what you said in the beginning. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's not a taboo topic anymore. We can approach it with confidence. It's going to happen.
An act of nature.
Exactly.
It is an act of
But I
nature.
feel like if you have the right people around you and you're educated, you can get through it pretty well.
I mean, you know, there's also things like plastic surgery. A lot of women want to do that so that they feel better about themselves. You know what? There's just such a stigma around aging. And if you're a woman, menopause says to you, look what's happening. You really are aging. And as you know, none of us really want to go through that. So,
but it's also a conversation that must be had not just with women. I think that their partners need to have a general good understanding as well, just as much as it physically affects the women. If you are with a partner that doesn't understand these changes that are happening and why the relationship is being affected in the way that it's being affected, it's going to be problematic. So it's about making sure that men and women all understand and are able to support each other through this and know that that's just what's going to be happening.
Exactly. But do you have a comment on social media for us?
No. I haven't got a comment on social media.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Eve, for, of course, joining us today and, of course, taking us through the whole, menopause talk. It's going to happen, like we said. So we just need to take away all the stigma around it. And, of course,
the silence.
And the silence.
Break the
Please
silence.
go to a healthcare provider, specifically a gynecologist who is equipped and knowledgeable about hormones, and discuss your options around it. You do not have to suffer your way through this transitional phase.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eve, the one and only, our relationship expert, talking about menopause this morning. Of course, we'll do relationships again next week, Monday, but hopefully we've enlightened so many of our viewers this morning that there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of when it comes to this very natural part of our cycle.